Well, we've talked about a lot today.
We have. I've learned a lot. I've enjoyed the conversations and looking forward to this one.
So we have a lot of people we've talked to throughout the day, and that could be infrastructure, it could be policy, it could be from the OEMs. There's a variety of things that make things happen, but a lot of that also turns into how do we have the right conversation with people that don't know what they don't know. And so, Mehrsa Khaleghi, you are an e-mobility consultant with AECOM, and a lot of the conversations that we've had today, we've kind of unpacked that people just need to have the right resource to make the right decisions when it relates to electrification. And as an e-mobility consultant, a lot of that falls into your world, I would imagine. So on a day-to-day basis, what is it you're working on a regular basis that helps make what the electrification industry will become?
On a daily basis, we have a lot of clients from municipalities, utility. They reach out to us. They're under state mandates or overall any other goals or local laws that they have to go through. So they reach out to us and they're like, well, we have to electrify. How do we electrify? So it's the whole planning from their fleet side, from their infrastructure, from financing it, from training workforce, which is kind of getting the people on board, from smart charging, how they can charge smartly so that they cannot put too much pressure on their grid, and it just rolls out. After that, how do we maintain it? How do we upgrade? How do we expand? So we help them along all of those processes, which obviously takes a couple of years, and then after that, we'll do the design for them, what needs to go in place, and then after that, just maintain and operate.
So oftentimes when you see an industry come together, especially on the technology side, when it's aligning multiple stakeholders, there's not a lot of sexy things happening like as that process plays out. It requires a lot of dedication and, to your point, time. It requires planning. And we talked to John from NYPA earlier today and from the New York Power Authority, and he said, look, he's like, we started working on this 7 years ago, 8 years ago. That's the reality around what's happening in this space, is that there's a lot of experts that have been having to work for long periods to just set the stage for success. So what's that process look like when a municipality or anybody comes to you for that consultation? Are you kind of having to ask where they are in their experience and their understanding of what they have to do? Sometimes you have to start right at the beginning, or do you kind of meet them in the middle sometimes?
So step 0 is getting their data. Like, what are you tracking? Are you aware of what are you tracking so that you can make data-informed decisions? And then just sitting with their people. We do a lot of stakeholder engagement, understanding the story behind the numbers, making sure that we understand where they are coming from, what are we going to recommend, and how both of those kind of merge and we get to a solution. And I agree, we're living in a world that's full of technology, right? So it's all about you making sure you're tracking your information and you're constantly using them for making a better, more informed decision. You cannot really go into it blind. We hear from a lot of people that they're like, yeah, we just decided to install 12 chargers and they install 6.2 kW. I'm like, sure, we did that in 2015, but not anymore. Why do you go with the cheapest one? Just go with the one that can track. It's not dummy charger, it's a smart charger. And then you can utilize that to expand and make better decisions.
Well, that's, again, it's helping make an informed decision. I think there's one thing I've noticed, honestly, in our space is that there's still those moments where people go out of their way to be proactive to try to find the right resources, but they might get taken. There's a lot of people that also are getting into our space that are saying, oh, yeah, we can help with that. Yeah, we can solve that problem for you. But they're not necessarily trying to solve the problem as much as they might be trying to get a sale. So how do you balance that in your work?
We try to put our clients into vendors that understand and kind of, we had so many times going into sites and seeing that they have these kind of chargers that do not comply with the codes. And sometimes the business, the charger go out of business and then you cannot do anything with that charger.
Right.
You have to take it all the way out and try to reinstall. So our mission is making sure that we're putting them in touch with vendors that can support them throughout the process. It complies with the codes and kind of give them that assurance that you can upgrade, you can get incentivized for that upgrade with the same vendor, and they can just sit with you, go through your information, make sure you're tracking it correctly, and kind of help you along the process. So it's not like a one-time sell. I think it's more of the customer service around it too, to make sure that you continue that partnership.
It's a relationship that you're building out. I mean, we've talked about a lot of different things today that relate to it. This is not a one and done thing. This is a process, and we're seeing the fruits of the labor at an event like Expo with the amount of vehicles that are now on market. But what you're describing too is that there are a lot of people, again, behind the scenes that are in part of this process, and some of them are stumbling along the way, but they need resources to make a better decision. And we're still, again, we talked a little bit earlier about infrastructure and how ION is rolling out. And it's these are well funded. These are companies making things happen, but the missteps can still happen. But what is, I mean, in your view, what do you think that we've kind of unpacked today as it relates to what she's describing, which is you've got to have the right resources, but the right experts at a given moment?
Well, I think you also have to have the right motivations, right? And so, you know, what is it that motivates your clients to want to make these change, to want to do this in the first place? Is it because they have to or because they want to?
They have to. I think a lot of recent rollouts is just based on policy.
And sorry, does that mean therefore they don't actually want to? I mean, is that...
They're feeling forced, basically? Like,
right.
Yeah.
A lot of them, yes, or it might be the people that are in the leadership and they're feeling so ambitious about it and they want to be the first one that making it happen. But when you go down the hierarchy, you see that the people that actually have to deal with it day to day might not be specifically so happy about it. So I think it's a combination of both, ambitious and like when you go later in, you see like, okay, not everyone might be happy with that decision and rollout.
That's interesting because even it's a buy-in discussion. The human element and the buy-in of it to say we're going to execute this and do it well, as opposed to I'm just doing my job and I will phone this in if I have to. It's even related to what we're talking to Darren about, as it relates to even like on the dealer side about we have to get the dealers engaged in a way that they feel motivated. And it's not like, hey, you got to do this, and they're begrudgingly being like, okay, yeah, we'll come along for the party. That's something that I think those who do stand up and say we're going to take a forward look on this to lead on this. I mean, good example, like even GreenCars here. I mean, it's from the Lithium Motor Group. I mean, that's a dealer network that's saying we're being on the forefront of saying we will be advanced and engaged. So to your point, you got to have the human factor as a thought process around this, and the hurdles that are there are very real to get people not just to feel like, yeah, we can get it done, but motivated and excited to get it done.
And are you able to do that? So, I mean,
right.
And I don't mean like in terms of you personally, but if the process starts with your clients investing in this because they feel they have to do it for regulatory or corporate, policy reasons or whatever, do you find that they kind of do the minimum because that's what they have to do, or are you able to help them see that there are the other benefits to actually making these kind of transitions?
So normally we don't give them only one plan. We give them a couple of plans. Like one that's like very ambitious, aligns with the state mandates, and it's like very aggressive. The other one is where it's like more cautious, more economical, and it still aligns with the state goals, but more progressive rather than just like making it very rushed out. Interestingly, when it comes to the number, the sooner you do it, the sooner you're going to see the return on investment. So when we do the process with them, they are like, yes, logistically, it might be hard, and all the logistics need another conversation after this, but they realize if they do it faster and sooner, that's when they're going to see the savings. And that's where they can be the first ones in the lines of getting the financial assistance, right? Because the funding landscape is like constantly changing. So if you do it sooner, you can be the first ones to see what kind of incentives and rebates are available and what can you do with it. But up until you get to that point, you don't know what you're really asking for.
That's a good point. I mean, I think that is so much about we have to educate and inform people that aren't even just consumers, but it's also the people that are industry adjacent. They don't even realize they're actually a part of this, but then to your point, it's like, no, we have to do this. We actually have to execute on this plan. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how over time there's more people that see the value you're talking about. Will that become that new motivator? Is those who were on the progressive side of it that did leap out and get it done, whether it was begrudgingly or not, but they start seeing that value. And instead of having it being a mandate or a regulatory mandate, it's like we can actually proactively start doing these things, and you can even expand your client base because maybe you'll get more natural interest in the services you're providing. I would assume that it could naturally go there.
Yeah, that's how it normally works out. Exactly.
I almost sounded like I knew what I was talking about, Daniel.
It's the first time.
All day. Well,
No.
Well, okay, there was a few of them.
Third time.
Third time? Oh, you've been keeping track. I like that. I mean, I'm curious. This is kind of a little bit of a in the weeds discussion a bit. How did you get into this role? What drove you to be a part of this process?
So for me, it goes back way in time. I did my undergrad in industrial engineering, and then I always knew I wanted to do some sort of graduate program. But at the time, I was working at Foot Locker, and they have a lot of waste and the whole automation they had in there. So that just kind of started a passion for me that maybe I can do something different about how they're doing things. And then I did my master's and then PhD all about EVs, and my dissertation was all about charging infrastructure, but not on the client and the municipality side, but more on the people side.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but no, yeah. This went from you identifying how systems work and saying, okay, but how do I apply my understanding of how to fix systems as it relates to something that is going to be, you're on the front lines of what it will be again, in our lifetimes, it will be a process. But you've dedicated everything from your education all the way into what you're doing for work. So when did all that start? I mean, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this for over 5 years now.
Okay.
But with consulting, it has been 2 years.
See, go ahead. I'm always amazed hearing that kind of like inception story. So,
no, absolutely. When we were chatting earlier, just before this, we were talking about sort of EV myths and facts, and one of the EV myths we were talking about, or apparent myths, is that EVs are more expensive than gas cars. So you were telling me that that's not the case.
That's not the case, because that's only the MSRP, right? If you're thinking about it long term, it's about the maintenance. Like, think about that if you have an internal combustion engine, you have to do the oil change or other parts change. But when it comes to the EV side, maybe you need to get your tire rotation, some checkups, like when you mark certain mileage, and then electricity price. That's so much cheaper when you're comparing it. Like, you can just do a cost benefit analysis, taking an ICE, taking an EV, put it on a 5-year span, and then you'll see. So that's interesting. And then second, we are seeing from a lot of government and like national lab reports that they're projecting the cost of battery is gonna drop by a lot in the next 10-15 years. So the whole point behind that is like making a price point something that's affordable. I think the lady from EV Drive Long Island was mentioning that we want to see the price point coming down, and it's gonna come down because those are the projections, and that's where they're trying to take the automation go.
I think that the challenge of that is people have been buying products, especially cars, for a long time. They don't necessarily think of the ownership cost. They just think of their monthly payment, and then they just kind of assume the sunk costs, which are, I gotta buy gas, and they just kind of say, yeah, I'll deal with that. I don't wrap that in. So trying to package that in a way that we can help people see value, again, because that's we're talking about a stretched over time value benefit, whereas a lot of people just look at it and go, my paycheck comes every 2 weeks. If I can afford to keep this car, then I will. It's like, yeah, but your gas is going to be more. Yeah, but I know how to use that, and I don't have to think that hard. It's a lot of what we talked about from that consumer behavioral response to this. How do we keep addressing that in a way that we can make it easier for people to understand?
I think that's where there is opportunity for training, right? Public awareness on those topics. Plus, if you look at it, it's not really that way. Like, a lot of Uber, ride sharing, those stuff are transitioning towards EVs because those are the ones that are consuming their vehicles they're highly utilizing their vehicles, that they're like, okay, it works for me to make that paycheck, but then save a lot on my gas. So I think that's definitely room for improvement. And I think I was telling you, like, this is great that we're doing this setup and the showcase so that the public can come and see all of this themselves and have a tangible experience.
Well, but then it's even talking to, like, Rosemary from Drive Electric Long Island, it's the after this day. Is especially on a localized level. That's one thing about Expo that's so great, is it goes into a lot of these different major metropolitan areas, and then it's here. It creates a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, gets a lot of people attending, thousands of test drives. But then they have to have resources on a local level that they can then turn around and go and get more information if they want it.
And there is a lot. Like, I worked with Rhode Island Office of Energy Resources, and they've been doing this Drive EV thing up there too. And they had every week like different EVs coming up. They had from fire trucks that kids could come and see them. They were doing a whole education on them. It wasn't a big event like this one. It was like maybe 1 or 2 vehicles at a time, or they would just go park at a charging station and they would show them and they would educate them. So I think it's training as a whole, but it honestly really comes down to the small steps that you can do. And obviously, yeah, these are with the bigger organizations like estates and everything to accommodate that, but obviously there is a lot of places that you can read about them. A lot of them simplify the languages. Like, I've seen so many of those in TED Talks that they do try to do sketch. So like, kind of making sure that we're circulating that information, I think that's what's going to help with public.
Well, yeah, and information as it translates today to how people find it and gain it, social media included. Now we have AI to contend with. The amount of times I will search something and find that AI went and scraped something and they spit something back out to me, I'm like, nope.
That's wrong.
That's not right. So we have a lot of that as a challenge for us as an industry for communication. And again, oftentimes at Expo events, communication becomes the hot topic. Is we've got all this product and all this technology and the promise of all of it, but the communication part of it is still fundamental.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder when it comes on the price comparison metric whether you just have to kind of get to sticker price parity, and then you're able to pretty easily demonstrate that the ongoing costs after that are much lower, and then suddenly you're in a sort of win-win situation where you've sort of removed the initial barrier, and now suddenly the case is really making itself. But while there is that disparity, if people have that perception that EVs are just more expensive, even though you can look over the total cost of ownership and that isn't the case, that there is always that barrier to get over. So I think we have to look both in the total, in the overall, but also in that sort of.
And I think one thing I want to add, like besides the cost, besides the training, a lot of us lead by example. So a lot of these policies going on and like pushing the municipalities to go electric, and people see that in their town, like with their Department of Sanitation, seeing them all around their neighborhood. That again gives them a very vivid and tangible experience, and kind of makes them curious to look into those stuff, and they're like, okay, this is how we're operating our city, our state. Maybe we can also consider that too. Yeah,
it's not just thought leadership, it's actual tangible leadership and saying, I'm living this out. I think that's also, I've been to plenty of conferences in the EV in my time in the electric car world where you'll be doing a panel, you'll be talking about how do we get more people to do this, and then someone on the panel will say, out of curiosity, by show of hands, who in this room doesn't drive an EV? And it's, at the time, dating back even like 5 years, more than half the room. So interest in the product and the industry is one thing, but living it out is important. So I think the leading by example is huge. I think that's why something like, again, events like Expo, it allows for these brands that have the product to showcase we do have it, and then allows for local conversations like, again, with Rosemary from Long Island Drive Electric. There are things happening on a localized level that is that leadership representation. It takes time, as you're describing. Like even these organizations reach out to you that need the services. It takes time. You have to plant a seed, but then you have to nurture it and get it to go. So if we've talked about a lot, we've gotten in the weeds a little bit. Have we missed anything that you wanted to touch on?
No, I think my story from today.
Sure.
I want to share that story because it was a funny one. So I meant to make a rental and come here. And then there was a 2-hour line. I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna get the car. They came out and they told us there is probably not so many gas vehicles available, but we're happy to give you an EV. The whole line left, and I was the only one stood there, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm gonna wait and get it. And they told me, they came out, they told me like, we have a Chevy Bolt. I'm like, what year is it? They're like 2018. I'm like, oh, okay, this is probably before it got discontinued. And I'm like, I probably won't take it. It's like 100, 120 miles. And they were like, what are these maths you're doing? I'm like, I'm gonna cancel. I'm gonna go and Uber there. So that was a funny story, but also like with someone with knowledge, it was a interesting decision to make.
No, you had to do the math on your own, but like you said, you have the background to say, I'm gonna do the thinking. Out of curiosity, what rental car company was it?
Are we allowed to say that?
Well, no, but the industry needs to know, and people need to know.
Does it begin with an H?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Howard's? Man, the last time I rented from Howard's, I mean, they were okay. I get it. No, but what you bring up is a very important factor, which is we've talked a lot today from a lot of experts, and we've had a lot of feedback from experts. The car is not the question. The car drives. It has range. If you don't know how to fill it up and drive it, you will not rent it. Chances are you may not buy it, but because of events like Expo, we get to have people like you that talk about, hey, we're behind the curtain and making a lot of this stuff happen. So Mehrsa, thank you so much for coming by today. Again, you have proven that you've dedicated your life to this effort. You've been talking to Darren earlier, how he's like, dude, I'm doing this, I'm passionate, I'm getting into it. It's because of the individuals that start working on this that Expo has become what it is. Rewind 5 years, this wasn't an opportunity, but it's the humans that give a damn to try is how we're gonna keep pushing this forward. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Thanks for having me.
All right, this is the EV Reality Check booth powered by GreenCars.com. We're going to be talking to a few more folks here the rest of the day. And if you have any questions, Mehrsa, you can be here for a minute. Maybe if someone wants to chat. Perfect, sounds good.